I've carried this weight for years, but I guess it's time to finally unload it. Maybe Reddit is the right place to spill my guts. My name's Jake, and I'm 30 years old. I used to run a custom motorcycle repair shop. Used to. More on that later. Growing up in Knoxville, Tennessee wasn't terrible, at least. Not because of the town. The real problem? My family? Specifically, the fact that I never really felt like I was a part of it. See, I have a younger brother, Ryan. He's 3 years younger than me, but you'd think he was the second coming of Babe Ruth the way my parents worshipped him. Our house was basically a shrine to his baseball career. Trophies, medals, signed baseballs, it was everywhere. They even built a custom display case for his achievements. Meanwhile, my stuff? Nowhere to be found. I was damn good at auto shop in high school. Even won a couple of awards for engine rebuilds. My trophies? Probably collecting dust in a drawer, or more likely thrown out. I remember spending an entire summer fixing up an old Yamaha engine when I was 16. I saved for months working at the local gas station to buy the parts. When I finally got it running, I was so damn proud. I called my dad out to the garage to show him. He stood there for about 20 seconds, muttered, "That's nice, son," and then immediately asked if I'd seen Ryan's latest batting stats in the newspaper. That moment burned itself into my brain. It wasn't just about the engine. It was about me realizing that no matter what I did, I'd always come second to my brother. And it wasn't just praise. It was money, too. My parents spent thousands on Ryan's baseball career, private coaches, travel teams, gear, the whole 9 yards. Meanwhile, I worked 2 jobs in high school just to afford basic tools. The kicker? I never even resented Ryan for it. He wasn't a bad kid, just spoiled and completely unaware of how lopsided things were. Sometimes, I'd catch him looking uncomfortable when they ignored me, but he never spoke up. Why would he? He had the golden ticket. By the time I turned 18, I knew I had to get out. I saved every penny I could, found a rundown garage about 10 miles from my parents' house, and turned it into my own shop. No loans, no family help, just me grinding 16-hour days, sleeping on an old cot in the back for a year until I could afford an apartment. It was brutal, but it was mine. Word spread that I could fix bikes better than the dealerships for half the price, and business took off. My shop was my pride, my purpose. It was the one place where I mattered. Then there was Emma. She opened a small coffee shop next door about 2 years ago. First time she walked in with a welcome to the neighborhood cup of coffee, I nearly dropped my wrench. She was stunning smart, funny, and somehow she actually seemed to enjoy talking to me about bikes and engines. I got stupid butterflies every time she stopped by, but I kept it cool. No way someone like her would be interested in a grease-stained mechanic like me. My family had drilled it into me that I wasn't worth much, so I figured she saw me the same way. Things were finally falling into place. My business was solid. I had my dog, Diesel, hanging out with me at the shop every day, and at least Emma seemed to enjoy chatting with me. I thought maybe, just maybe, life was heading in the right direction. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a Tuesday. I was working on a high-end Ducati for some rich dude from Nashville who wanted custom mods. Diesel was napping by the door. My old speakers were blasting AC/DC, and I was using my plasma cutter to modify the frame. I'd done this 100 times before, nothing complicated. But this time, I don't know what happened. Maybe the metal was faulty. Maybe I was just tired. All I know is that 1 second I was making a clean cut, and the next, there was a horrific screeching sound, a shower of sparks, and the plasma cutter kicked back hard. The blade sliced straight through my right leg, just above the knee. The pain hit like a lightning bolt. I saw my own flesh sear from the heat, and the smell of my own burning skin made me want to throw up. I screamed so loud Diesel jolted awake, barking like he could fight whatever had hurt me. Blood gushed out fast, not just a little pulsing, pouring. My head smacked against the concrete floor as I fell, making everything spin. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely reach my phone. I had to call someone. I had to get help. My fingers, slick with blood, fumbled as I finally managed to dial the only number that came to mind, my mom. When she picked up, I could barely speak. "Mom," I gasped. "I'm hurt. Bad. Cut her my leg. Blood everywhere." She sighed, like I had just interrupted her watching TV or something. "Jake, honey, we're in the middle of something important. Can you call an ambulance?" I thought I misheard her. "Mom, please. I'm losing too much blood. I need help now." She sighed again, irritated now. "Just hold tight, sweetheart. We'll be there when we can." And then she hung up. I stared at my phone in disbelief. My own mother, who lived 10 minutes away, had just told me to hold tight while I bled out on my shop floor. My vision started tunneling. My body was cold, even though I was sweating. I tried to call 911, but my fingers were too slippery with blood to hit the numbers right. Diesel was going nuts, barking, nudging my face, whining like he knew something was really wrong. I could barely keep my eyes open. This was it. I was going to die alone on the cold concrete, all because my family couldn't be bothered to drive a few miles to help me. Then, just as the darkness started creeping in, my phone buzzed in my hand. Ryan's name flashed on the screen. Maybe, just maybe, he'd come through for me. I answered, barely able to speak. "R. Ryan. Help. Accident. Bleeding." There was a pause, then a laugh. "Oh crap, sorry. Thought you were someone else. We're celebrating my contract, man. AA League, baby. $2 million deal." In the background, I heard my mom's voice. "Ryan, honey, come take a picture with the scout." I tried to say his name again, to beg, but the line had already gone dead. They were all there, just a few miles away, toasting champagne, celebrating Ryan's success, while I was bleeding to death on the floor. I don't even remember passing out. But I remember the last thought in my head: I was never family to them. Not really. I woke up to the sound of frantic voices and the distant wail of sirens. My whole body felt like it had been dipped in fire, but at least I was alive. Barely. "Mia, wait. No, Emma." I forced my eyes open. Emma was kneeling beside me, her face pale, hands shaking as she pressed something against my leg. Her belt. A makeshift tourniquet. "Jake, stay with me. The ambulance is almost here." She looked terrified. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hair disheveled like she had run here in a panic. My shop door was wide open. Diesel was barking like crazy, pacing back and forth. I tried to say something, but my throat was raw, my mouth dry. "You're gonna be okay," she kept saying, more to herself than to me. "Just keep your eyes open, all right?" I wanted to tell her how stupid that sounded, how I couldn't feel my leg anymore, how I was so damn cold even though I was sweating, but I didn't. I just let her voice be the last thing I focused on before I blacked out again. When I came to, I was surrounded by the sterile white walls of a hospital room. The steady beep of machines told me I wasn't dead. My right leg was wrapped in thick bandages, and the pain was manageable, probably thanks to the drugs they were pumping into me. Emma was asleep in the chair next to my bed, her clothes still stained with my blood. She had stayed. I turned my head slightly, trying to process everything. The accident, the call to my mother, the way she dismissed me, the way Ryan laughed. I swallowed the lump in my throat. They never even showed up, not once. The door creaked open, and a doctor walked in, flipping through a clipboard. Middle-aged, glasses perched on the edge of his nose. He glanced at me, then at Emma, then back at me. "You're lucky," he said, stopping at the foot of my bed. "If your neighbor hadn't found you when she did, you wouldn't be here. Another 5 minutes, and you would have bled out." Emma stirred at the words, blinking herself awake. When she saw me looking at her, she sat up quickly, relief washing over her face. "Oh, thank God," she breathed. The doctor continued, clearing his throat. "The damage to your leg was severe. The plasma cutter severed your femoral artery, which is why you lost so much blood. We managed to save the limb, but," he hesitated, "but you won't regain full function. You'll have mobility, but standing for long periods, heavy lifting, that's out of the question. The nerve damage alone will make it difficult. It's something you'll have to learn to work around." I stared at him, waiting for him to tell me he was joking. He wasn't. It took a second for the words to settle in. No more bikes. No more long days in my shop. No more custom builds. No more of the one thing I was actually good at. My whole life had been built around that shop, and now it was over because of one bad moment. I clenched my jaw and looked away. The doctor left after giving me more medical nonsense that I barely heard. Emma was still watching me, her brows furrowed like she was trying to figure out what to say. "So, your parents?" she asked hesitantly. I let out a short, humorless laugh. "Didn't show. Didn't even call." Her expression darkened. "I tried reaching them," she admitted. "Your emergency contact info had their numbers, but they wouldn't pick up." "Of course they didn't." I sighed, suddenly exhausted. Not surprising. A beat of silence stretched between us. Then my phone vibrated on the table beside me. I reached for it, my heart stupidly hoping it was them. That maybe, just maybe, they had finally come to their senses. It was my dad. For a split second, relief washed over me. But when I answered, his voice was casual, distant, like we were discussing a minor inconvenience. "Jake, your mother and I need to borrow $25,000 for Ryan's relocation expenses." I almost thought I misheard him. "I'm in the hospital," I said, my voice eerily calm. "I almost died, Dad." A pause. "Yes, and we're very sorry about that, but Ryan's contract." I hung up. Emma stared at me, eyes wide. "Did he just?" "Yeah," I muttered. I opened my banking app. For 5 years, I had been sending my parents $1,000 a month, thinking I was helping with bills, thinking I was doing the right thing. But now I knew exactly where that money had gone. Straight to Ryan. With a few taps, I canceled the automatic transfers. Emma didn't say anything for a long time. Then, softly, "That's not family, Jake. That's just selfish." Yeah, I knew that now. The next few days blurred together. Surgery, recovery, physical therapy. Every time my phone buzzed, it was my mom, calling about the money. Ryan texting that family helps family. I ignored them. Emma, on the other hand, was there every single day. She brought food because hospital meals were trash. She helped me figure out the damn TV remote when I couldn't even sit up properly. She talked to me about normal things, her coffee shop, stupid customers, funny stories about Diesel sneaking food when she wasn't looking. She kept me sane. One night, as she was helping me back into bed after another grueling therapy session, I finally asked, "Why are you doing all this?" She paused, looking down at me. "Because I care about you, idiot." I blinked. She rolled her eyes, muttering, "God, you're dense," before leaning down and kissing me. It wasn't some perfect, romantic movie moment. I was sweaty, exhausted, and she probably tasted like hospital air, but I kissed her back anyway. And for the first time since the accident, I felt like maybe, just maybe, things weren't as hopeless as they seemed. I wasn't going back to my old life. That was clear. My leg wasn't going to magically heal. My business, the one I had spent years building, wasn't coming back. But Emma had an idea. "Teach," she suggested one night. "You know more about bikes than anyone in this town. If you can't fix them yourself, teach others how to do it." It sounded ridiculous. Who would pay to learn from a crippled mechanic? Turns out, a lot of people. It started with one kid, Jamie, some 19-year-old who had been hanging around my shop before the accident, always asking questions. I charged him $20 for a 1-hour lesson, just to see if it would work. Then, he told his friends. A month later, I had 5 students. 2 months later, Emma and I were sitting in my garage, going over the paperwork to register my shop as a trade school. Not the future I expected, but maybe the future I needed. Running a motorcycle repair shop was one thing. Running a trade school? Whole different beast. I had no idea what I was doing, but Emma, she had that part covered. Paperwork, licensing, all the boring business crap. "That's my thing," she said, sorting through a stack of forms. "You just focus on teaching." And that's what I did. The shop, once my personal sanctuary, turned into something new, a place where kids who couldn't afford real trade school came to learn. Jamie brought in his cousin. His cousin brought a friend. Word spread. Turns out, people liked learning from someone who had actually done the work, not just read about it. My leg still gave me hell, but I made it work. I set up a small classroom area with folding chairs and a whiteboard. When I needed to demonstrate, I let the students do the hands-on work while I guided them. Watching them get excited over rebuilding an engine from scratch reminded me why I loved this job in the first place. For the first time since the accident, I felt, okay, not just surviving, actually living. But of course, my parents weren't done with me yet. It was a Saturday afternoon when it happened. Emma and I were closing up the shop after class when the door swung open. "Jake." My dad's voice. I didn't even turn around. "Shop's closed. We need to talk." My mother chimed in, her voice softer, fake sweet. The tone she used whenever she wanted something. Emma stepped beside me, arms crossed. "You're not welcome here," my father scoffed. "Excuse me? This is a family matter." I finally turned to face them. They looked the same, my dad in his usual button-down, my mom clutching her overpriced handbag like it was a lifeline. The only difference was the tension in their faces, the unease in my mom's fake smile. They weren't here out of concern. They were here because they needed something. What do you want? I asked. Mom shifted uncomfortably before blurting out, Ryan's in trouble. I almost laughed. Shocking. Dad cleared his throat, clearly annoyed. He had some contract issues. Turns out his team had a clause he didn't read properly. He has to buy out part of his deal. And it's expensive. How expensive? I humored them. $450,000. I did laugh this time. They had to be kidding. You need almost $500,000. And you came to me? I shook my head, still laughing. You do remember that I almost died a few months ago, right? You remember hanging up on me while I bled out? Mom looked down, guilt flashing across her face for half a second before she buried it. Jake, honey, that's not fair. We didn't know how bad it was. Yes, you did, Emma snapped. You just didn't care. My dad clenched his jaw. We are asking for help because family helps family. I felt a sick, sort of deja vu. That same line Ryan had texted me after I canceled the money transfers. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Family helps family? You mean like how you helped me when I was dying on my shop floor? Or how you didn't visit me once in the hospital? Dad's face turned red. That's different. How? Silence. Emma stepped forward. You've taken enough from him. He owes you nothing. My mother let out a dramatic sigh. Jake, we're not asking for a handout. If you sell this place, there will still be money left over for you to start fresh. You can find a new career, one that doesn't require. She gestured vaguely at my leg. I felt my blood boil. You want me to sell my business, something I built from nothing, so Ryan can get out of a contract. He was too stupid to read? Dad exhaled sharply, shaking his head. You're being selfish. Selfish. That was the last straw. I stepped forward, ignoring the ache in my leg. Get out. Dad's eyes darkened. Jake, get out. Mom reached out like she was going to touch my arm, but Emma moved between us. You heard him. Leave. Dad's jaw clenched, but he grabbed Mom's arm and turned toward the door. Before leaving, he threw one last glare over his shoulder. You'll regret this. I smirked. I doubt it. The next day, I went to the bank and officially removed my parents from any financial connections. Then I blocked their numbers. No more messages, no more guilt trips, no more manipulation. They had made their choice a long time ago. Now, I was making mine. A month later, I found out through an old friend that my parents had lost the house. Turns out, the bank wasn't as patient as I had been. The mortgage they claimed was tight for years. It was a financial black hole. Without my monthly payments, they couldn't keep up. Ryan? He burned through what little money he had left, trying to fight his contract issues. When that didn't work, he ended up moving back in with my parents in their tiny apartment on the outskirts of town. Dad had to come out of retirement and take a job at a hardware store. Mom started working part-time at a department store. The mighty had fallen. Did I feel bad? For years I thought I would. That if they ever hit rock bottom, I'd feel some obligation to step in. But I didn't. Not even a little. Because every time I started to wonder if I had been too harsh, I remembered the smell of my own burning flesh, the sound of my mother sighing in annoyance, my father's cold voice asking for money while I was still in a hospital bed. They had no problem letting me suffer. So why the hell should I care about them? Emma and I officially became business partners. She handled the financials, marketing, and all the legal stuff, while I focused on teaching. We even started the paperwork to get my shop recognized as an accredited trade school. And yeah, we were more than just business partners. She had been there through the worst of it, and somehow, she still looked at me like I mattered, like I wasn't broken. A year later, we got married. It was a small wedding, just our closest friends and her family. Not mine. My real family was standing right beside me. Some people are born into families that love them. Others have to build their own. And honestly, I wouldn't trade mine for anything. If you'd told me a few years ago that I'd be running a motorcycle trade school instead of working on bikes myself, I would have laughed in your face. But here I was, teaching kids how to do what I once thought I'd be doing for the rest of my life. The transition wasn't easy. There were days I woke up still expecting to roll into my shop, grease up my hands, and spend hours under an engine. But my body had other plans. The nerve damage in my leg made sure of that. Some mornings, just getting out of bed was a challenge. Some nights, the phantom pain was so bad, I'd lie awake, gripping the sheets, reminding myself it wasn't real. But Emma, she never let me sink. She was the first one up every morning, making coffee, organizing class schedules, handling the finances, things I didn't even realize needed handling. She kept me grounded, reminding me that just because my role had changed didn't mean I had lost everything. "This school is yours, Jake," she told me one night as we sat in the garage, going over student applications. "You built this, and you're changing lives." And she was right. It started small, just a few students at a time. But word got around fast. Not everyone could afford traditional trade schools, and a lot of these kids had nowhere else to go. Some were fresh out of high school, looking for a skill to make a living. Others were older, stuck in dead-end jobs, desperate for a change. I didn't just teach them how to fix bikes. I taught them how to work, how to take pride in their craft, how to problem solve, how to build something from nothing just like I had. And damn, it felt good. A year after the accident, Emma and I got married. It was nothing fancy, just a small ceremony in her parents' backyard, surrounded by friends and the people who actually cared about us. My parents weren't invited. Not that they would have come. I had officially cut them off. And from what little I heard through old acquaintances, they were still struggling. Ryan had blown through every dime he had. His baseball career was over before it ever really began. My parents had lost their house, moved into a dingy apartment, and were barely scraping by. Part of me thought I'd feel something about it, anger, satisfaction, maybe even guilt. But I didn't. I was too busy living my life. That night, as Emma and I sat by the fire pit, sipping beers, watching Diesel snore at our feet, she nudged me with her elbow. "You ever think about reaching out to them?" she asked. I thought about it, really thought about it, and then I shook my head. No, that chapter of my life was closed. As the months passed, the school kept growing. We got more students than we could handle, so Emma and I started looking into expanding. "You need more space," she told me one day, flipping through real estate listings. "And more staff." She wasn't wrong. I was still doing most of the teaching myself, but my leg wasn't getting any better. Standing for long hours took a toll. Some days, I'd have to sit while my students did the hands-on work. Other days, the pain was so bad I had to leave early. I hated it. Hated feeling like I wasn't pulling my weight. But Emma, being Emma, didn't let me wallow in it. "We're building something bigger than just you, Jake," she reminded me. "It's not about what you can do anymore. It's about what we can create." She was right. So, we hired 2 former mechanics who had lost their jobs when a big dealership shut down. They had years of experience and were great with students. I trained them myself, making sure they knew how I ran things. With their help, I was able to step back a little, focus on the business side of things, work smarter, not harder. We moved into a bigger space, built out a proper classroom, set up a scholarship program for students who couldn't afford tuition. The school wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't just some forgotten son, struggling to prove his worth. I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Just when I thought I was done with my family for good, life threw one last curveball. It was late one evening, after all the students had gone home. Emma and I were locking up when a figure stepped out of the shadows near the parking lot. Ryan. I almost didn't recognize him. He looked rough, like he hadn't slept in days. His hair was a mess, his clothes wrinkled. His usual cocky, golden boy demeanor, gone. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he let out a bitter chuckle. "You're doing pretty well for yourself." I crossed my arms. "What do you want, Ryan?" He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. I don't know, man. I screwed up. I didn't say anything. My contract, my money. It's all gone. Mom and Dad are struggling. I'm barely making ends meet. I waited because I knew there was more. Then he said it. "I need help." I should have felt something, pity maybe, but all I felt was exhaustion. I sighed. "Ryan, you made your choices, just like they made theirs." His face twisted. "Come on, man, we're brothers." I almost laughed. "Brothers?" I shook my head. "Where were you when I needed you?" He looked away. That's what I thought. I turned to leave, but he grabbed my arm. "Jake, please. I'm sorry, okay? I was a dumbass. I let them control everything. I didn't see it before, but I do now." His voice cracked. I don't know what to do." For the first time, he actually sounded genuine. I sighed. "If you really want to fix your life, you start from the ground up. No handouts. No shortcuts." His shoulders slumped. "I don't know how." I studied him for a long moment, then pulled a business card from my wallet. "Show up at 7 a.m. tomorrow," I said, handing it to him. "You start as a student, like everyone else." His eyes widened. "You serious? That's the only offer you're getting?" He hesitated. Then, slowly, he took the card. I didn't know if he'd actually show up, but for the first time, that wasn't my problem to fix. I don't know how this story ends yet. Maybe Ryan changes. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe my parents will always be who they are. But me? I've built something real. I have a family of my own now, not the one I was born into, but the one I chose. And that's more than enough for me. I didn't expect Ryan to show up the next morning. But at exactly 7 a.m., he walked through the doors of my shop, looking like he hadn't slept. He had a cheap backpack slung over his shoulder, wearing old sneakers and a hoodie that looked about 2 washes away from falling apart. For a second, neither of us spoke. I kept my arms crossed. "Didn't think I'd see you here." He swallowed, shifting his weight. "I almost didn't come." "Why did you?" He ran a hand through his hair. "Because I don't have anywhere else to go." I nodded. "Fair enough." Emma was sitting at the front desk, pretending not to eavesdrop, but I knew she was listening to every word. Diesel, sensing the tension, sat between us like a referee. I let the silence stretch before finally saying, "You start from the bottom. No favors, no special treatment. You work just like everyone else." Ryan exhaled, nodding. "I get it. Good." I pointed to a crate of old motorcycle parts in the corner. "First lesson, disassemble that carburetor and tell me exactly what's wrong with it." He hesitated. I don't know how." "Then you better start learning." And just like that, Ryan Summers, former baseball prodigy, became my newest student. The first few weeks were rough. Ryan wasn't used to failing. His whole life, things had been handed to him: coaches who overlooked his mistakes, parents who covered for him, people who praised him just for existing. Here, none of that mattered. He fumbled through the lessons, his hands awkward on the tools. He got frustrated easily, snapping when things didn't come naturally. "This is impossible," he muttered one afternoon after botching a simple oil change. I leaned against the counter. "No, it's not. You're just not used to struggling." He glared at me. "I've struggled." I let out a short laugh. "No, Ryan, you haven't. You've never had to figure out how to survive without mom and dad fixing things for you. This," I gestured around the shop, "this is what real life looks like." He didn't say anything, just wiped his hands on a rag and kept working. Good. Maybe he was finally getting it. One night, after class, Ryan stuck around, cleaning tools, long after the other students had left. I was locking up when he finally spoke. "I was a dick to you," he said quietly. I raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, I noticed." He let out a tired chuckle, shaking his head. "I used to think you were just bitter, that you were jealous of me. But now, I get it." I leaned against the doorway, waiting. He swallowed hard. "Mom and Dad, they screwed us both up, didn't they?" I hadn't expected him to admit that. "They put all their money, all their time, into making me some big success," he continued, staring down at his hands. "And I let them. I never questioned it. I just let it happen." I exhaled. "Yeah, you did." His jaw tightened. "I'm trying to be better, Jake." I studied him for a long moment. "Then prove it." One night, I was sitting in the shop going over student applications when Emma walked in, tossing a folder on my desk. "Ryan's actually improving," she said, almost like she couldn't believe it. I flipped open the folder. Inside were progress reports on all my students. Sure enough, Ryan wasn't at the bottom anymore. "He's putting in the work," Emma admitted. "He still screws up a lot, but I think he's actually trying." I closed the folder. "Good." She sat on the desk, watching me. "How do you feel about that?" I ran a hand over my face, sighing. "Honestly, I don't know." Emma studied me for a moment before reaching out and taking my hand. "You don't have to forgive him," she said gently. "But maybe this is his way of fixing things." I looked down at our hands, then back at her. Maybe. Just when I thought my parents were out of my life for good, they found a way to remind me why I had cut them off in the first place. One evening, as Emma and I were closing up the shop, my phone buzzed. "Mom." I almost ignored it, but something in me wanted to hear what nonsense she had to say this time. I answered, keeping my voice flat. "What do you want, Jake, sweetheart?" Her voice was sickly sweet, the same tone she used when trying to manipulate me. "How are you?" I rolled my eyes. "Cut to the chase, Mom." She sighed dramatically. "Your father and I, we've fallen on hard times." I almost laughed. "You don't say." "Jake, We're your parents. No, you're not. Silence. Then, in a much colder voice, she said, "So that's it? You're just going to let us struggle? You let me bleed out on a shop floor, Mom." She had no response to that. I exhaled sharply. "Goodbye, Mom." And for the last time, I hung up. Then I blocked her number. Forever. I didn't need them. I didn't need their validation, their approval, or their guilt trips. I had Emma. I had Diesel. I had a business that was thriving. And for the first time in my life, I had peace. Ryan? He was still figuring things out, but at least he was trying. Whether we'd ever have a real relationship, I didn't know, but that wasn't my burden to carry. Some families are built on blood, others are built on trust. And the one I built, it was stronger than anything I'd ever known. Cutting my parents off for good didn't feel as dramatic as I thought it would. There was no big emotional moment, no overwhelming sense of victory or regret, just relief. Like finally putting down a heavy weight I hadn't realized I'd been carrying my whole life. And after that, life went on. Ryan stayed at the school. He wasn't the best mechanic. Hell, some days I wondered if he even liked working with bikes. But he showed up every day, worked his ass off, and, for once, didn't expect special treatment. One afternoon, a few months after he started, I found him sitting outside the shop, staring at his hands like he didn't recognize them. "Something on your mind?" I asked, lighting a cigarette. He sighed. "I don't know if this is what I want to do forever." I took a long drag before answering. "Then don't do it forever." He glanced at me. I exhaled the smoke slowly. "You don't have to figure out the rest of your life today. But if you want to get anywhere, you have to start somewhere." He nodded, mulling that over. "Yeah, I guess that makes sense." And that was that. With Ryan working as a student instructor, Emma and I were able to focus on expanding the school. We secured a second location across town, hired more instructors, applied for grants. Before I knew it, we weren't just running a trade school, we were running a damn business. Emma, being the absolute genius she was, handled the legal side, making sure we qualified for state-backed funding. We started offering night classes, scholarships, even partnerships with local garages that wanted fresh mechanics. It was bigger than I had ever imagined. And for the first time since the accident, I didn't feel like I had lost my purpose. I had just found a new one. I thought I was done with my parents. But life has a funny way of testing you just to make sure you mean it. One day, after locking up the shop, Emma and I stopped by a local diner for dinner, and that's when I saw them, my parents, sitting in a corner booth, looking tired, older, like life had chewed them up and spit them out. Mom noticed me first. Her eyes widened, and for a split second, I saw something almost like hope flicker across her face. Then Dad turned. He stiffened but didn't look away. Emma, noticing the tension, reached for my hand. "We can leave," I exhaled. "No, I'm done running." So we walked past their table without a word. But just as I reached the door, Mom called out, "Jake, please." I stopped, turned around. She hesitated, glancing at Dad, then back at me. Can we talk?" I studied them. The last time we spoke, they had come asking for money. I had no reason to believe this would be any different. But a part of me, the part that still wished things had been different, wanted to hear them out. So I sat. Emma didn't move far, just a few feet away, watching. Mom clasped her hands together. We've lost everything." I didn't respond. Dad cleared his throat. "We made mistakes." That made me laugh. "Mistakes? You abandoned me." Mom flinched. "We were wrong, Jake." I leaned back. "And now that you have nothing, you suddenly realize that?" Silence. Dad swallowed hard. "We want to fix things." I shook my head. "No, you want to fix your situation. You don't care about fixing us." Mom's lip trembled. "That's not true." I gave her a hard look. "Really? If I hadn't cut you off, if Ryan's career had worked out, if you still had your house, would you be sitting here right now?" She looked away. I nodded. "That's what I thought." Dad exhaled sharply. "You're being stubborn." "No," I said, standing up. "I'm just finally putting myself first." Mom reached out like she wanted to grab my hand, but I pulled back. "You were my parents," I said, my voice steady. "And when I needed you the most, you weren't there. You made your choice." I looked at them one last time, then turned and walked away. They didn't try to stop me. And that told me everything I needed to know. Emma didn't say anything on the drive home. She just held my hand, letting me sit with my thoughts. I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry. I just felt free. Some families lift you up, others hold you down. I had spent my whole life trying to prove myself to people who never saw me, but the truth was, I didn't need their approval. I never did, because I had built something real, a career, a home, a family one that wasn't defined by blood, but by love, trust, and loyalty. And that was worth more than anything I had lost. Years passed. The school grew. Emma and I bought a house, had a kid, named him Max, after the best dog I ever had. Diesel was getting old, but he still liked to hang around the shop, pretending to be useful. Ryan? He moved out of state, got a job working at a custom bike shop. He still called every now and then. We weren't close, but we weren't strangers anymore either. As for my parents, I never saw them again, and I was okay with that, because in the end, I didn't just survive what they put me through, I thrived. And I wouldn't trade this life for anything. If you've ever been in my shoes, if you've ever felt like the forgotten one, the expendable child, the afterthought, I want you to know something. You don't have to keep proving your worth to people who refuse to see it. Walk away, build your own life, and trust me, you won't regret it. Story 2. The title of this story is My Girlfriend Forgot Her Phone at Home on the Day of the Proposal. What I found led me to devise the most heinous form of retaliation. Hey everyone, I needed to get this off my chest because I'm still digesting it all. About 3 years ago, I, a 30-year-old man, met my girlfriend, Avery, a 28-year-old woman, in this coffee shop. Before work, one used to go out. In an attempt to get my coffee and get to an early meeting, I was running late that morning. I made the cliched mistake of turning too quickly in my hurry and running directly into this girl who was waiting for her drink. My white shirt was splattered with coffee. My one good pair of work shoes was probably destroyed by my trousers. She actually laughed when I almost baptized her in hot coffee, rather than being angry. It's a genuine laugh, not the false, polite one people give when they think you're a fool. A stack of napkins was then retrieved by her and given to me. Do you usually leave such a lasting impression? I can still clearly recall this little smirk she had when she asked. There I stand. Even though I looked like a total mess with coffee spilling down my shirt, I managed to stutter out something about getting her a different drink. Yes, she replied. This really caught me off guard. Even more startling. At the end of it, I had her number. This dive bar was where we had our first date. She arrived looking far too attractive for that location. I recall feeling completely outclassed. Avery had a fancy executive title and worked in marketing for a large downtown company. I worked for a software company as a regular code monkey in the interim. Nothing noteworthy. However, we clicked right away, spoke for hours. She was everything I wasn't, intelligent, humorous, and driven. However, it managed to work somehow. After a year, we finally moved in together. I have this nice flat in the heart of the city. Nothing spectacular, but the setting was stunning. We were that obnoxious pair that appeared to know exactly what they were doing. Discussed the future, including marriage, having children, and other topics, and I was totally on board. My best friend from college, Jake, would constantly make fun of me for getting whipped. What did he know, though? He was still living the frat guy life at 30, dating a different female every month. I had something real, or at least I thought I did. The first couple of years were honestly amazing. We had our routine Sunday breakfasts, Netflix binges, weekend treks. When we can afford it, we travel. Nothing extraordinary. For my birthday last year, I only went on weekend trips to the mountains or the ocean. She gave me tickets to see my favorite band as a surprise. She had been hinting at this upscale spa for months, so I arranged us a couple's massage there. Then, I was unaware of it. Approximately 6 months ago, things began to change. Little things. Initially, all of a sudden, Avery began working late shifts. Tuesdays and Thursdays are always the days. A promotion would result from this significant customer assignment, she explained. It made sense. Avery was always focused on her job and working hard to seize the next big chance. On certain nights, though, she would return home in a different state, sometimes unusually silent, and other times overly gregarious. When I spotted a drink stain on her blouse that wasn't there in the morning, her perfume smelled stronger, as if she had recently reapplied it. Hard day? I inquired. Without wasting a beat, she said, client meeting. You are aware of the situation, and since I had no reason not to, I trusted her. Ordinary folks do that. They have faith in their long-term partner. She became increasingly possessive of her phone at about the same time. She would always carry it with her, even to the loo, something she never did before. Changed the password on her laptop. Said that it was for job security, which seemed reasonable enough. I once woke up at approximately 2 in the morning. Moreover, she wasn't sleeping. She was frantically texting on her phone when I spotted her in the kitchen. She startled as if she had seen a ghost when she saw me. You frightened me, Jesus. She put her phone face down and spoke rapidly. At 2 in the morning, I'm just reading my work emails. I didn't push it though. I simply tried to ignore the strange sensation in my stomach and went back to bed. I also observed additional things. She would receive these calls and answer them in a separate room. Increased the number of girls' nights I spent with strangers at work. She would offer me evasive responses that didn't actually tell me anything when I asked her about her day. However, each time those uncertainties surfaced, she would do something that made me feel foolish for being concerned. She would prepare my favorite dish or surprise me with tickets to a game. She seemed to be able to tell when I was becoming suspicious and knew just how to make me look bad. I therefore made the decision to strengthen our bond. If there was a problem, I would remedy it. Began organizing additional date evenings and bringing her flowers at random. Also took her to a winery. She had been wanting to visit for a weekend. I decided it was time to go ring shopping after that. I studied the powers of diamonds for much too long, as if I suddenly had to pursue a career in gemology. Asked her friend Mia to assist her in choosing an item that would appeal to Avery. Are you certain about this? When I showed Jake the ring I was eyeing, he inquired. For a little rock, that's a lot of money. She's worth it. With confidence, I said, as if I were a complete clown. I spent 3 months worth of money on the ring. I made a reservation at an upscale, unreachable Italian restaurant downtown, called Mia to assist with the planning. She intended to ensure that Avery wore a decent outfit, completed her nails. Girls seem to worry about all those stuff when it comes to proposal pictures. I was quite anxious on the day I was going to pop the question. Made sure the ring was still in my pocket by inspecting it every 5 minutes. Waiting for Avery to get home from work so we could go out to dinner. We paced our flat. Her phone rang at that point. That morning, she had forgotten it. She never done that. The phone continued to ring. The same figure, not kept in her contacts. In 10 minutes, there are 4 calls. What if anything was wrong? I kept asking myself, what if she suffered harm? Telling myself that I was just being a worried boyfriend, I took it up. Hello, sweetie. I have been attempting to contact you. Can't wait to see you tonight, stated a man's voice. The same location as before. Suddenly, everything in my universe fell apart. My hands became totally numb. I practically lost feeling in my fingertips as she held her phone. I had to sit down on the couch before I fell over as the room began to spin. Hi there, Avery. Are you there? Once more, the voice said. Without saying anything, I hung up. What on earth was I meant to say? Well, dude, here is the boyfriend. Tell me you won't ban my girlfriend, please. Yes, exactly. For perhaps 30 seconds, I sat there attempting to breathe. Then my hands began to move by themselves. I picked up the phone. There is no password for it. I told her to put 1,000,000 times, though. I used this number to check her texts. Just the number, no contact name. The first warning sign was that. These days, who doesn't preserve their contacts? After looking through 6 fucking months of texts between them, I felt like throwing up. My life for half a year, apparently that was all crap. The Hyatt downtown has designated meeting hours. Emojis of hearts. I wanted to bleach my eyes because of those sexts. Avery's nude photos. What's the worst? Jokes about me. He has no suspicions at all. A few months ago, one of her technicians read, I get dicked down twice a week, but he's too preoccupied with his computer games to notice. I was on the verge of vomiting. I don't even play a lot of games. Even though I just play with Jake for a few hours on the weekends, it seems like it was enough for her to portray me as a gullible loser while she was out having an affair. She was planning to end our relationship after the holidays because she didn't want to ruin my Christmas. And they were discussing their future plans to eventually move in together. How fucking kind of her, isn't it? Not wanting to ruin my vacation mood before she ruined my life. I'm scrolling through this nightmare when this man sends me another text. As usual, remember to delete these communications. For his own sake, your lover is overly trusting. Arsehole, you fucking think. Her key in the door was then heard by me. I hardly had time to attempt to seem natural and returned the phone to its identical spot where she placed it. If you recently discovered that your 3-year girlfriend is a dishonest, unfaithful person, what does normal look like? She was beaming as she stepped in, looking amazing in her business attire. However, I felt disgusted for the first time. Hello, sweetie. I apologize for being late. Today's work was hectic. She kissed me quickly as if nothing were wrong. I'll simply get my phone and take a quick shower. After that, I'm yours for a romantic evening. When she noticed the missed calls, I briefly detected a shift in her expression. She most likely told Loverboy that she couldn't meet tonight due to our date, as her fingers raced over the screen. After that, she vanished into our bedroom. While she was getting ready, I stood there feeling paralyzed, my engagement ring weighing 1,000 pounds in my pocket. In the loo, I could hear her humming fucking. Managing 2 relationships at once while feeling pleased of herself. I poured myself a drink in the kitchen. My hands were shaking, so I needed something to stop it. I had a million things going on in my head. Now what on earth was I meant to do? Face her right away. Scream. Do away with her crap. The entire dramatic scene. Alternatively, I may act as though I was unaware and somehow catch her in the act. Attend one of their meetings with her, saying nothing was my final resort. Collect proof and carefully consider my departure strategy. Confrontation has never been my strong suit. I was still in shock too. The last thing she could do was take a shower. I used my phone to take images of the text. They all forwarded them to my email, make a backup of them on my cloud drive. She could not possibly remove the proof before I had receipts. I then sent Mia an SMS. We must speak right away. Avery is important. She answered very instantly. What is going on? Not via text. Coffee shop tomorrow morning at 12:09 a.m. Yes. Is everything all right? I didn't respond to the question. For a long time, nothing was going to be all right. Avery looked stunning as she emerged from the bedroom, wore this form-fitting black outfit that I had always adored. Hair is flawless. Makeup is finished. It had the scent of the pricey perfume I had given her for Christmas. All set to go? Reaching for her handbag, she inquired. I'm going hungry. Not trusting myself to say more than was required, I nodded. Without losing my shit during the journey, I somehow managed to get us an Uber to the restaurant. There, she talked to a coworker I had never met about workplace rumors and some drama. I couldn't stop wondering if this coworker was a fake, or if it was simply a front to justify her late hours. I made the appropriate sounds at the appropriate moments and nodded along. My brain was screaming all the time. You fool. She has been unfaithful for 6 months. When we arrived to Vincenzo's, we were seated at the table I had scheduled weeks in advance. The one with the city view by the window, the romantic one that was more expensive to reserve. I got a wink from the hostess. She was aware of the proposed scheme. What a farce. Impressed, Avery looked around. Whoa, what a fancy location. What's the event? I just wanted to show you a wonderful place. Without my voice breaking, I was able to utter it. My jeans felt like they were being burned through by the ring box in my pocket. I placed a different order than I usually do. Avery's eyebrow went up. She was aware that I was a habitual person. Is everything all right? She inquired, touching my hand from the other side of the table. You look tense. Only work-related items. I told a lie. It was funny how simple it was to tell lies when necessary. Perhaps I had taken a cue from the greatest. She began by sharing a story about her workday. She spun lies with such ease that I almost had to respect her talent and the difficult task she had been working on, the challenging client, and her boss's recent admiration for her. A performance worthy of an Oscar. Really? Avery would have won every gold medal during dinner if lying were an Olympic sport. At least 4 times, I saw her check her phone beneath the table. Every time, she would swiftly swipe her fingers across the screen before putting it away and grinning at me as if nothing had happened. Apologies. Work email, she would say, not able to avoid it. Even during dinner. Yes, it is, she asked at one point, and since I appeared a little tense, I assumed she was attempting to start a conversation. Couldn't resist. Do you recall our first date? How did your nervousness cause you to keep dropping your fork? I was struck by the memory, like a truck. She had captivated me. So excited. Now I was thinking, had there been others before me? How many males had she juggled at once? Yeah, was all I could say while she spoke about weekend plans with our pals. I thought of our flat. My name was on the lease. Most of our furnishings we'd bought jointly. We shared a bank account for home costs. 3 years of entwined life would take time to disentangle. My phone buzzed. Mia had replied to my SMS from earlier, growing frightened. Is this about the proposal? Second thoughts? I didn't react. We'll deal with that tomorrow. Our dinner was brought by the server. Avery ate as if nothing were wrong, and I shoved mine about the plate. Dessert was even ordered. We allegedly shared chocolate mousse. She ate most of it, though. What is the unique event, then? She smiled and asked again. About tonight. You have been quite evasive. Just to witness her expression, I nearly took out the ring at that moment. Rather, I sipped my drink once more and said, I only wanted to take a good action. You are the greatest, she murmured, grabbing my hand once more. You are such a blessing to me. The irony was nearly unbearable. Here she was, fucking another guy twice a week on her late hours, telling me how lucky she was, and planned to break up with me after the holidays. I was worn out from acting like nothing was wrong by the time we arrived home. I saw her sleep soundly next me while I lay awake all night. I believed I knew this individual better than everyone else. I was prepared to live my entire life with this guy. As it was, I had no acquaintance with her. I met Mia at the coffee shop the next morning, arrived early, got a corner table where we could converse without being overheard, and ordered the strongest black coffee they had. Slept for little more than an hour. I think my eyes appeared to have been intoxicated for 3 days. Mia arrived on schedule, appearing perplexed and anxious. She was friends with Avery. First, we had grown close over the years, but they had known one other since college. I always believed her to be straight up, among the better ones. What's happening? Sitting down with her nice cappuccino, she inquired. Tyler, you look like a complete mess. You've known for how long? I got right to the point when I inquired. Small chat is pointless. Her expression instantly altered, went on the defense. Known? What if Avery betrays my trust? She stopped. Before she even opened her mouth, I could tell all I needed to know from the expression on her face. She stumbled. I don't know what you're talking about, but she avoided looking at me. I remarked in a low but stern voice. Cut the shit, Mia. The texts were visible to me. I am aware that she has been dating a man for 6 months while working late hours. Slowly, Mia put down her cup and glanced about as if seeking a way out. She sighed at last. She said, Listen, I found out a month ago. I caught a glimpse of them together at the Hyatt downtown. They were in the lobby when I was there on business. I'm kissing. Even though I already knew, my stomach sank. In a way that the texts hadn't. Seeing it verified by another person made it genuine. 1 month. I said it again. We've been friends for a month, and you assisted me in organizing a proposal. Mia turned her head away. She had guilt on her face. That next day, I questioned her about it. It wasn't serious, she vowed. Said that it was only a physical matter and that she would put a stop to it. And you think such nonsense is true? Tyler, I've known her for 10 years. She was sobbing as she admitted to making a mistake. Claimed to love you but to be annoyed that you hadn't asked her to marry you yet. That nearly made me chuckle. The fact that she has been having sex with someone else for 6 months is my responsibility. That's not what I said. Mia fired back. I advised her to break up with you and come honest. I will, she said. Exactly when, following the holidays. Wasn't that her plan? Mia seemed perplexed. What are you saying? I took screenshots using my phone and gave them to her. She scrolled through them, her face growing whiter and paler. All of this was unknown to me. She muttered. It was just a fling, she informed me. In these messages, they discussed their shared future. After Christmas, the first tell you. Merry fucking Christmas to me indeed, I said, reclaiming my phone. You assisted me in purchasing a ring, even though you knew she was cheating. What sort of companion is that? I insisted that she stop it. Mia persisted. Her eyes began to well up with tears. She vowed to do so. I pondered. I genuinely believed that she would choose you if you proposed because she would understand the danger. I looked at her, trying to process that. So you tested me to see whether she would choose me over him? It's not. That wasn't how I was thinking. Who is he? I inquired. Are you aware? She gave a head shake. A guy from the Los Angeles headquarters of her corporation. Something Derek. About 6 months ago, they met at a conference that corresponded with the timetable. In June, Avery had been to Los Angeles for a marketing convention. returned full of energy from her newfound friendships. I suppose she was referring to non-professional ones. Is there anyone else who is aware? I inquired. Not as far as I know. Look, I'm really sorry, Tyler. As soon as I spotted them together, I should have notified you. Since college, she has been my closest buddy. I believed I knew her. I assumed she would act morally. For a minute, we sat in quiet. I was aware of what to do already. At last, Mia inquired, "What will you do?" I took out my phone once more and showed her the email that I had written the previous evening. It was sent to Avery's sister, parents, close friends, and a number of her coworkers. Screenshots of her images and the most damaging messages she sent are included. "That's cruel," Mia said. "What's brutal, I answered. "Do you intend to pop the question to someone who is about to start a new life with someone else?" That didn't bother Mia. "What time will you mail it?" "Today, after I speak with her. Jake and I spoke over the phone this morning. While she's at yoga, he will assist me in moving my belongings out." "Are you heading out?" "As simple as that." "How would you respond?" I inquired. "Try to resolve it by staying. She has been deceiving me for half a year. Mia is talking trash about me to a guy who is going to break up with me after the holidays. What needs to be worked out?" For that, she had no response. I had one more question before I departed. "Did you do anything to assist her in covering for her?" Mia gave a hard shake of her head. "No. For her, I never lied. I was unaware that she was using me as an alibi when she claimed to have been with me on those occasions. It wasn't until I saw them together that I realized. I wanted to trust her, so I nodded. "I will require the return of the spare key." I extended my hand as I said. She took it out of her handbag and gave it to him. "In light of its value, I apologize sincerely." "Yes," I responded as I got to my feet. "I agree." For the next few hours, I worked in autopilot mode. I informed them that I needed a day to myself, made a call to Jake. I phoned my landlord, informed him of the issue, and had my name removed from the lease. Made a bank call. Our joint account was split up. Around 11, Jake arrived with his pickup. Avery was at her usual yoga session on Saturday mornings. The one genuine item in her lie-filled agenda. We worked quickly. I'm just getting my necessities. Personal belongings, devices, and clothing. Everything was gone except for my gaming chair and desk. Left the TV that we had purchased jointly. She left the upscale kitchen items she had chosen. By midday, we had packed my vehicle and Jake's truck with everything I couldn't bear to part with. In a matter of hours, 3 years of my life were packed up. "Man, are you certain about this?" As we completed our last inspection of the unit, Jake inquired. "It's fairly definitive, but I don't blame you. The point is that I claim to have left my key and a message that simply said, 'I know everything,' on the kitchen counter. We'll speak again at 1. Attend." At his apartment, Jake assisted me in unloading my belongings. I told him I had to do this last step by myself, but I offered to remain for moral support. I stepped back inside the flat at precisely 1 p.m. Avery was there already. Wide-eyed, she exuded anxiousness. She had seen the missing items. On the counter, she had spotted my key. Something was coming, she sensed. "What's happening?" Her voice was strained as she asked. "What's missing from your belongings?" "Your key is on the counter, but why?" Words didn't concern me. I took my phone out, pressed play, and allowed her own voice to ruin her. Her charming little note to Derek filled the room with "I mistakes" and expressed her eagerness to meet him once more. Her cheeks was flushed as she froze. "I can clarify." She had already begun to scramble. "Do not bother." I abruptly interrupted her. "I witnessed everything. The pictures, the writing. You have a small plot to break up with me after the holidays." This morning, Mia filled in the spaces. Her eyes widened. "That was the worst betrayal," Mia told you. Her pal had enough of a conscience to share, not that she had been cheating on another man for 6 months. She was not required to. "I noticed your phone. Yesterday, your lover gave you 4 calls. I suppose he overlooked the bit about erasing the proof." She changed course at that point. Stiffening of the face. Manner of defense. "It's not what you think, you see." She lost her temper. "Tyler, we were never formally recognized." "You mean I don't have a ring on my finger? I spent 3 years waiting for you to commit. What should I have done?" "Simply wait till you've made up your mind. I had to think about what I could do." I gave a harsh, low chuckle. "Choices? That's the term you use. Sneaking about like a coward to explore alternatives." I lowered my voice and moved closer. "Do you believe that my indecisiveness caused you any harm?" Last night, I was going to pop the question. Her face broke. remorse and confusion seeping through. What? After removing the ring box, I threw it on the coffee table. Yes, I had everything prepared. Vincenzo's for dinner. I have a ring in my pocket. Mia assisted with the setup, but I was abruptly brought back to reality when your phone rang. Thus, Avery, congratulations. You were too preoccupied with being huddled in hotel rooms by Derek to get the ring. As if it would somehow make things better, she grabbed for the package, as though she were going to drown without it. With weakness, she responded, "We can fix this. It was an error. I didn't think much of him." I pushed the package out of her line of sight. It's not a mistake to make mistakes for 6 months. It's a way of life. You did a good job of living it. Her feigned tears quickly dried up. Anger took over. That's all then. You're discarding everything after 3 years because of a single small transgression. I sneered. This was no drunken mishap, Avery. This was prearranged, coordinated. You played mistress with him and house with me. I was insulted behind my back by you. You repeatedly lied. It's not a little thing. You are demonstrating your true self to me in that way. After taking out a folder, I placed it on the table. The lease is no longer with me. The utilities are finished. The joint account has been closed. Your personal account already has your half. I'm leaving. Her face fell apart. After everything, you're just going to go. We can work things out now that I know you are about to pop the question. I chuckled sharply and bitterly. Yes, timely convenience. You want to figure it out now that the safety nets are gone? No, Avery. We is no longer available. Only you and your regrets are there. As if I were still the fool who would have fell for it. She moved closer and reached for me. It's not that you adore me. You do, I'm sure. I gazed at her, composed and steady. The person I adore is no longer with us. I glanced back as I made my way to the door. Oh, and check your coworkers, friends, and family's emails in 5 minutes or so. Her face became white. What did you do? Simply said the truth, I answered. If you were so upset about my not committing to you, this is something you ought to have done right away. Panic took across her face. You didn't. Please don't do this, Tyler. I'll do anything, I remarked. I should have considered that before you started fucking Derek from LA and got into my car to go. After sending the email, I shut off my phone. 3 years were spent on it. As simple as that. What's the most absurd aspect? There was a strange sense of relief behind all the anguish and rage, as though I had just avoided something far more serious than a breakup. The following 48 hours were a complete haze. I shut off my phone after sending the email. After hours of pointless driving, I finally pulled into a random park on the opposite side of town and sat there looking at nothing like a total zombie. My phone was exploding with alerts, messages, calls, voicemails, and emails when I eventually turned it back on at midnight. Everyone was commenting on the bomb I had just thrown on Avery's life. Her sister left increasingly irate voicemails after calling me 7 times. Each of her parents wrote me lengthy, dejected messages stating that I should have had a private conversation about this and that this isn't how grown-ups deal with issues. Screw that noise. When their beloved daughter cheated for 6 months, where was this family concerned? Avery was completely destroyed and hasn't stopped crying, Mia texted. Great tale. I don't give a damn. Her colleagues' answers were the most intriguing. As it happens, good old Derek from law wasn't simply a stranger. At her firm, he had a senior director position and was engaged to another lady. Everyone at their organization now knows that he has been hitting on Avery behind his fiance's back. They both committed suicide in their careers. In fact, one of Avery's coworkers thanked me, claimed that Derek had been pressuring younger female colleagues for years by abusing his position. But up until today, no one had evidence. Jake handed me a 6-pack and didn't question me when I drank it all in one sitting. He also let me stay at his house and put me up in his spare room with an inflatable mattress and some bedding. Man, do you need anything else? He inquired. I said that a time machine would be fantastic. Return and avoid ever seeing her again. Jake only gave a nod. You made the correct decision by leaving. The majority of men would have dragged it out and attempted to make things better. There's nothing to fix, I said. Unfucking another man is impossible. I applied for transfers at work on Sunday. Austin and Seattle were home to offices for my business. Decided that the best way out of this situation could be to start over. Things were even more crazy the next day. I sent out screenshots and emails and Derek's fiancé had seen them. He attempted to place all the responsibility on Avery after she reportedly challenged him, said that she couldn't accept no since she was fixated on him. A classic move. To save your own ass, put your side piece under the bus. But the fiancé didn't believe it. She got in touch with me personally and asked for all of my information regarding their affair. I emailed her the whole folder with the images and screenshots. After thanking me, she sent them to his wedding party and all of his family's friends. For the price of one life, two are collapsing. I can't say that it made me feel horrible. Avery, meantime, was trying to patch things up with everyone she knew. Mutual friends claim that she was telling others that we had essentially split up anyhow, and that she was taking a mental vacation when she claimed that I was never around and was constantly playing games with the guys rather than listening to her. What nonsense. Jake and I played for no more than 3 or 4 hours every week. I spent the remainder of the time with her or working. I was then scheduled to go to Seattle on Friday night, the night before. Once more, she appeared at Jake's. Jake contacted me to handle it because she was sober this time. She claims that until she speaks with you, she won't be going. Want me to call the police? He said. No. I let out a sigh. I'll take care of it. Jake was holding her in the lobby, so I went downstairs to the building door. She seemed awful, as if she hadn't gotten any sleep in days. Hair is a disaster. Wearing what seemed to be pajama trousers and one of my old sweatshirts that she must have discovered at the flat, she had teary eyes. 5 minutes. Flatly, I replied. You only received that? Outside Jake's building, we took a seat on a bench. I didn't invite her up despite the cold. She was not going to enter my makeshift haven. Are you truly going to leave? She put her arms over herself and asked. Yes. That's it then? Are you simply going to flee? I chuckled. Coming from the person who is going to break up with me after Christmas, that's a lot of money. The only difference is that the timetable has been accelerated. She winced. Those messages. Derek wasn't a serious person. We were only conversing. In reality, I wasn't intending to abandon you. Bullshit, I replied. Avery, I saw it all. The meetings at the hotel, the arrangements for his relocation here, everything. I couldn't understand. She made an effort. You weren't making a proposal. We were not going anywhere. Perhaps you didn't share my desires, I reasoned. You chose to fuck another guy instead of discussing it with me. Was that your answer? She broke down once more. God, the tears. Similar to a tap, she was able to switch on and off. I was wrong, she cried. The greatest error of my life. Tyler, you are loved. Just you. Derek was simply, well, I'm not sure. A way out. A diversion. I kept saying that for 6 months, a diversion. Avery, it is a huge distraction. Please. She took hold of my hand. I quickly withdrew it. Don't go like this, please. This is something we can resolve. See a counselor. Make a fresh start. I'll do anything. Had I not caught you, would you have taken any action? If I had made my intended proposal that evening, would you have said the truth? Back then, she paused. Only a moment. Too much time. I remarked, getting to my feet. That's what I thought. Your allotted 5 minutes are up. Hold on, Tyler. As I made my way back to the building door, she called. How about the ring? If nothing else, might I have that to remember you by? I ceased to doubt what I was hearing. Slowly turned around. Do you want the ring for your engagement? You were too busy cheating on me to accept my proposal with the one you didn't get. That ring? She nodded while her eyes continued to well up with tears. Yes, was what I was going to say. You are aware. I've always desired to wed you. Not enough, isn't it, to quit fucking another guy? I shook my head, not believing it. Avery, goodbye. This is something you'll regret. As I entered, she yelled after me. I loved you, and no one else ever will. Yes, I'm grateful for it. The next morning, I set out for Seattle. Jake was the only one I told when I was leaving. Worried that Avery could attempt a spectacular exit. It was taken to a pawn shop. I received less than half of what I paid, but whatever. It was gone, at least. For the most part, I felt liberated, as if I had fled from something more serious than a toxic relationship. I had left a life with someone who might deceive me for months on end with the intention of abandoning me at any time. Occasionally, the garbage removes itself. All you need to do is be prepared to let it go. Despite being quite lengthy, the travel to Seattle was strangely healing. It's just me, the wide road, and the Fuck Cheaters playlist that Jake produced for me. Very imaginative, isn't it? drinking enough coffee at the petrol station to kill a small animal and listening to bitter breakup songs for 10 hours. Naturally, it was pouring rain when I arrived in Seattle late on Saturday night and located my temporary flat. It was a little flat above a downtown Thai restaurant, equipped with the most basic IKEA dreck you can think of. The first week flew by, filled with takeaway meals, new tasks, and unfamiliar faces. Eating by myself in my depressingly little flat. During the day, I would silence my phone, but at night, I would check it to see if there were any new messages from or about Avery. Avery lost her job, Mia texted. It seems like everything about Derek went horribly wrong at work. He was engaged to the daughter of a major customer of the business. Who do you think was thrown under the bus? Not the seasoned senior director. Definitely. According to Jake, despite knowing that I had moved locations, Avery had come to our former apartment complex in search of me. I told my neighbors that I had fled during therapy because I was experiencing a mental health crisis. Really, what the fuck? A lengthy, guilt-tripping message about how Avery was in a terribly bad place and that I should at least talk to her for closure was sent by her sister, who somehow discovered my new email. Close my ass. While I was preparing a proposal, she had 6 months of dick appointments for closure. Then Friday evening arrived. My phone rang with an unfamiliar number as I was returning to my flat. I said hello, Tyler, against my better judgment. It was Avery calling me from yet another new number, slurring her words while intoxicated. A masochistic part of me wanted to hear what fresh garbage she had come up with, but I should have hung up. Avery, what do you want? She said. I'm coming to Seattle. Next week, I have a job interview there. Let's get together. My blood froze. This was not going to happen. She was not going to follow me over state borders. Don't. I spoke aggressively. Stay away from here. Don't look for me. We're finished. She mumbled. You can't tell me where I can and can't go. It is a free nation. Additionally, Seattle is a large city. Perhaps I would also like to live there. Listen carefully, Avery. We're never going to be reunited. Never. I'll obtain a restraining order if you come here looking for me. She chuckled. This unpleasant, acrid sound. For what purpose? I've done nothing incorrectly. Harassment, I said. After being repeatedly ordered to cease contacting me, you and your buddies have sent me hundreds of messages and phone calls. She quickly became sober after that. Wouldn't you give me a try? She fell silent. She then pledged to demonstrate her transformation, claimed to have relocated to Seattle. Keep your distance and wait until I'm ready to speak. I quickly shut that down. I wouldn't be. This wasn't a film where everything is resolved by a big gesture. It was done. I hung up and blocked her number when she called again. I contacted Jake about her potential move to Seattle and her job interview. He immediately called me and said it was some garbage from Fatal Attraction. I concurred. Was she telling the truth to Avery? Who could have known? I wasn't taking any chances, though. My address was moved to a P.O. box and checked my sublease to be sure my name wasn't on it. It would be difficult for her to locate me. Under the statement of the year, Jake cautioned me to exercise caution, and as she promised when intoxicated, it was the next week that Avery visited Seattle, shared a number of photos from tourist destinations on Instagram. 2 blocks from my office, there was even one at a coffee shop. I wasn't going to let her surprise me, though. I took a different route to work. I kept my head turned and steered clear of the typical downtown locations where she may unintentionally appear. I didn't feel afraid, simply clever. I was not going to allow her to corner me. Then, the doorbell rang one night. I assumed it couldn't be her because of the strict security at my building. She was there when I looked at the people. Avery put up a show, as if she were trying out for a twisted reunion scene. Heels make everything perfect. She dared to claim that she only needed 5 minutes to chat with the person who allowed her in below. I didn't respond, didn't flinch, allow her to speak to the door. She continued talking endlessly about her successful job interview and her plans to start afresh in Seattle, as if we could simply press reset, as if there had never been treachery. I said nothing at all. The voice of silence is more powerful. She went on to say that she had brought me something. I heard the rustle of paper. A folded letter was seen sliding beneath the door. She waited for a response for a moment. She received none. I grabbed it up when her footsteps eventually stopped. There was a therapy receipt for 1 session, dated 2 days after my departure from Portland, with a pitiful little letter about seeking treatment and doing whatever it takes to make things better. She now knew where I lived, so I put it in the garbage after laughing my ass off. There was a limit to that. She occupied my personal space. The final straw was that. I informed my landlord via email that evening that I had to terminate the lease for my own safety. I secured a new location by Friday. It's more expensive than my last house, but the peace of mind is worth every penny. It has a secure building, underground parking, key fob access to all doors, and a lift. That weekend, I relocated. Quick, tidy, keep quiet. The address was only known to Jake and my supervisor. No hints, no forwarding information. I trimmed the excess. Make a clean break. If something new comes up, I'll let you all know. Update. Hello, everyone. I recently celebrated my 1-year anniversary in Seattle, and things are going well. About 6 months ago, I met Claire, the girl, at a coffee shop close to my new residence. Yes, I am aware of it. One more coffee shop. There are many strange, tiny patterns in life. She doesn't resemble Avery at all. Engineer for software. Straight shooter. No drama. She laughs at my stupid jokes and drinks her coffee black. You know, even if we're moving slowly, it feels genuine. On our third date, I informed her about the Avery problem. Thought she should have the entire photo. She simply responded, "I'm paranoid," and nodded. And that was all. Avery hasn't contacted me in months. Jake relocated to Chicago when I last heard from her. I occasionally reflect about the moment I nearly proposed to a person who was leading a double life. I still feel as though I escaped a bullet. I received my ring money back from the pawn shop. I used it to travel to this coastal cottage for a weekend with Claire, a far better investment than a diamond for an unworthy person.